Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. We're going to have an abbreviated Bible class this morning because we're going to have a little meet and greet at about 9:30. So I guess we need to get started. We're going to say goodbye to the McLaughlins. Yeah. I don't want to interrupt your fellowship, but we do have a semi-crisis on our hands. Yeah, it's on. I hear it. So my wife teaches in the nursery, and she was going to teach a class this morning on the baby Jesus and when he was born and everything. And she's got these little figurines about that tall. And we couldn't find Mary or Joseph. So if you accidentally see Mary or Joseph laying around, could you please deliver them to the nursery? And I said, what's baby Jesus going to do without his mama? She said, I don't know, but we're going to go through with it. So that's the semi-emergency that we had to deal with this morning. Let's sing a song, shall we, while people filter in? How about number 560? 560. Good to see you this morning. I'm going to turn off the microphone because I like to sing sort of loud. 560. I care not today what tomorrow may bring, if shadow or sunshine or rain. The Lord I know ruleth o'er everything, and all of my worry is vain. Living by faith in Jesus above, trusting Him finding in His great love. From all harm safe, sheltering on. I'm living by faith and feel on. Though tempests may blow and the sun clouds arise, obscuring the brightness of life, I'm never alarmed at the overcast skies. The Master looks on at the strife. Living by faith in Jesus above, trusting Him in His great love. From all safe in His sheltering arms, I'm living by faith and feel alone. Our Lord will return to this earth some sweet day. Our troubles will then all be o'er. The Master so greatly will lead us away beyond the blessed heavenly shore. Living by faith in Jesus above, trusting Him finding His great love. From all harm safe, sheltering arms, I'm living by faith and feel alone. Somebody was singing a good tenor over there. I salute you. Today we are covering Daniel chapter 8, and it's going to be a stretch because it's the second vision that's recorded in Daniel. It is focusing
on the second kingdom after the Medo-Persian Empire. And so you have to think about Daniel, and let me go through this real quick so you can remember this. The first part of Daniel are the events in the life of Daniel that show that he was a leader. He was very faithful. He was very determined to keep the law, even though he really couldn't keep the law. He was going to be dedicated to God, even though he wasn't in the holy city. And so we have those events there, and then the visions come later. And we covered the last vision, vision of the four beasts, and today we're dealing with the vision of the ram and the goat. And so we have to ask ourselves, why is this in the Bible? I always like to ask that question because God has preserved the scriptures for us. It's amazing. There are so many encouraging words in this book, and I'm just wondering, why did God preserve, for instance, Ruth, the book of Ruth? I really love the book of Ruth. I really do. Ruth was a Moabitess, and she just happened to marry into one of the best families ever. But this poor family had terrible luck, right? You remember that? And Ruth was then told, I know your husband's dead, your father-in-law's dead, I'm still here, I can't support myself here in this area. I'm going to go back to my hometown in Bethlehem. You need to go back to your family and you need to seek another husband here. Remember what Ruth said? Well, in the common vernacular, she said, no way, Jose. She said, your God is going to be my God, and wherever you go, I go, and wherever you're buried, that's where I'll be buried. Apparently, she got a faith in God from her mother-in-law that just would not let her go. So she wasn't going to let Naomi go without her. Of course, Naomi was able to convince the other daughter-in-law to stay, and then you read a little bit more and you dig a little bit deeper, and guess Ruth became David's great-great-grandmother. Isn't that something? I think it's great-great. Well, all grandmothers are great, so I'm covered there, all right? So that's why if you dig a little bit, you'll understand why the books of the Bible are in there. They're there to encourage us. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why would God reveal this empire, which wasn't even formed yet, talking about the Greek Empire? Why would he include that in the Bible for me to read right now? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, we are the benefactors of a great deal of historical information about the Greek Empire. Amazing stuff that we've dug up. You all know, you've heard about Alexander the Great. One time I misspoke and I said, you all remember Alexander Campbell, right? Thinking, wait a minute, he came, but he wasn't that far back. No, Alexander the Great was so ambitious, his father, Philip of Macedon, united the Greek Empire because they were all city-states. And Alexander was trained by, oh man, I had it right there. Who was Plato's teacher? Or Socrates, Plato, and then Aristotle. Aristotle tutored Alexander. And so then you get this amazing empire started, and you wonder, why did we, have to have the Greek Empire? Well, guess what they did in Greece? They spoke Greek. It became the common language of the Roman Empire. Koine Greek is what we study today. And you can thank Alexander for that. Well, maybe God, because he planned it all. All right, so I'm thinking chapter 8 is important for that, just for historical reasons, but it also shows something else. Let me go over this again. In a time of turmoil, God is always in control. Daniel was nervous. Things were going on. He was an older man. He had several people under his tutelage. There was a contingent of Jews in the Babylonian, Persia area. What's going to happen next? He receives visions. These assure him that God is in control. Basically, anything that you read in the Bible, the end story is God's in control. He's going to take care of it. All right? When you read Daniel, you realize that the last kingdom that God is concerned of on this earth is the kingdom of his dear Son. And we're part of that. We're part of that. And so when we study Daniel, we're studying about our kingdom, the kingdom that is belonging to his dear Son. He's able to lift kingdoms up and destroy them. He's protecting his saints from harm, even though there would be some persecution. Now that's one of those things I wonder about. I know on the one hand that God tests his saints by allowing persecution to see if they'll be faithful. But then I'm wondering about all the other suffering that comes along because of war. Yeah, I'm not a fan of war. But God's in control. There's always victory in store for God's people. Today especially. What's dominating the news right now? Well, I didn't get you. I didn't hear you. Afghanistan? Yeah. I'm talking about a worldwide phenomenon that's making everybody stay home and they're afraid of everything. Yeah, just give me 10 shots if that'll clear the thing up. But I don't know if that's going to clear it up, right? Should we be worried about it? Should we be concerned about it? Is it going to defeat God? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. God's in control. Don't know why he does certain things that he does. Maybe it's sort of a wake-up call? See, I'm thinking about you guys, and you wake up every morning at 7 o'clock, but you still set your alarm clock. Why do you do that? You wake up every morning, usually before the alarm goes off. Why do you do that? It's a backup plan, right? Maybe God needed to keep pharmacists in business. I don't know. You don't like that kind of business? Maybe he wants us to pay more attention to our families and think more about family values. And that's why we've been cooped up together. We're wanting to kill each other, right? No. I always think about things. Let's go over this real quick. I've only got a few minutes, 15 now. Daniel 8. Remember, this is Daniel, 75 years in captivity, and he's trying to comfort the people. He's wrestling with a vision that he has at night. Here we go. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa. That was different than Babylon. Some say, the Babylons say that this was like the summer palace. And the Susites say, no, the Babylonian palace was the summer palace. I'm not going to get in that fight. But it was a different place than where he was used to be. He traveled all around the Babylonian Empire, conducting business for his king. In my vision, I saw myself at the citadel of Susa in the province of Elam. In the vision, I was beside the Ulai Canal. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns standing beside the canal. The horns were long. Have you ever seen a really aggressive ram that defends his territory? From a distance, maybe? You don't want to mess with a ram. He's sort of like the Chihuahua of the animal kingdom. He's got this idea that he's the boss no matter where he is. And he will butt you and he will tear you up, okay? One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. Remember what I told you about the horns? The horns always represent rulers, okay? I watched the ram as he charged towards the west and the north and the south. So this animal was putting on a demonstration of his power. And he was just charging in different directions. What does that mean? Well, obviously, he's some kind of emperor, empire, and he's clearing out the imposters around him. No animal could stand against him, and none could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased and became great. As I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat from a prominent horn between his eyes came from the west, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. So, a goat with one horn? The unicorn. There's a unicorn in the Bible, right? Okay, so obviously the goat is different than the ram, but the goat has only one ruler, and this is a dominant ruler, and this goat is so fast it flies. He came toward the two-horned ram I had been standing beside the canal and charged him at great rage. I saw him attack the ram ferociously, striking the ram and shattering his horns. The ram was powerless to stand against him. The goat knocked him to the ground and trampled on him, and none else could rescue the ram from his power. So obviously there's a ram out here. He's pretty tough. Here comes a goat with one big horn and takes him out. Transition. Always transition. The goat became very great, but at the height of his power, his large horn was broken off, and in its place 4 prominent horns grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Out of one of them came another horn, which started small but grew in power to the south, to the east, toward the beautiful land. Uh-oh, the beautiful land. I got a question for you. You guys are thinking about this. And this is the key to understanding any kind of symbolism. I'll even let you talk if you have the answer. When, and Bob can't say, Bob can't talk. All right, Bob? He doesn't talk anyway, so I'm just warning him. Okay. All right, so when is a square a triangle? That's your riddle. If you were a carpenter, you would know. When you're a speed square. See, a speed square is used when you're doing carpentry stuff, but it's really a triangle. All right, so when Daniel is writing these things, the Jews would know what he's talking about because they had the vocabulary. They knew the symbolic. Where's the beautiful land? What land did Moses promise the Israelites if they obeyed the Lord? Right? The promised land, the beautiful land, right? Okay, so apparently this particular symbol talks about an encroachment into the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of heavens, and it threw some of the starry host down to earth and trampled on them. So this goat had a big horn, the horn broke off, and then he had 4 little horns, and one of these little horns grew really big. It got so big, it could even strike heaven. Wow. It must have something to do with interrupting worship, something. Interrupted the connection between man and heaven. It set itself up to be as great as the prince of the host. It took away the daily sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was brought low. Uh-oh. Interruption of sacrifice. Interruption of worship. Because of the rebellion, the host of the saints and the daily sacrifice were given over to it. It prospered in everything it did, and truth was thrown to the ground. So, to a Jew, what is truth? Whatever God says, God's word, right? God's commands. Then I heard the Holy One, or a Holy One speaking, and another Holy One said, "How long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled? The vision concerning the daily sacrifice, the rebellion that causes desolation, and the surrender of the sanctuary of the host that will be trampled underfoot." How long? Give me a definite answer. Don't ask for symbolic language to give you a definite answer. It's always symbolic, right? He said to me, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. While I, Daniel, was watching the vision and trying to understand it, there before me stood one who looked like a man. And I heard a man's voice from Uli calling, Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision. So Gabriel, archangel, has a lot to do with these visions in Daniel. As he came near the place where I was standing, I was terrified and I fell prostrate. Son of man, he said to me. It's very interesting he uses this term, son of man. It's used some 40 times in Ezekiel. Jesus used the term son of man more to refer to himself than he did the son of God. Son of man, he said to me, understand that the vision concerns the time of the end. While he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep, with my face to the ground, and he touched me and raised me to my feet. I'm going to tell you what will happen later in the time of wrath, because the vision concerns the appointed time of the end. The two-horned ram that you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. Hey, we know that. That was what happened after the Babylonians, okay? So this is what's going to happen to the kingdom you're now in the third year. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes is the first king, Alexander. The four horns that replace the one that was broken off represent four kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power. So you all know what happened. Alexander, in the height of his power, it's a little fuzzy on exactly what happened to him. He was very ambitious. His men were very exhausted. He went from east to the west, west to the east, north to the south, and he was really pressing, you know, his guys, and they were all having a feast, and something happened, and Alexander got sick and died. Well, what do you do when you're a huge army on a campaign and your commander dies? What do you do? Well, you scratch your head and say, well, who's going to lead us now? We want to go home. Well, he had four generals, and the generals couldn't decide who was the best, so they all divided the kingdom into four different segments. We had Egypt, we had Syria, we had Greece, of course, and then a northern area above Syria. And these four generals became the emperors of their allotted lands. Keep going. In the latter part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, a stern-faced king, a master of intrigue, will arise. He will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause astounding devastation and will succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy the mighty men and the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the prince of princes. Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power. The vision of the evenings and mornings that has been given you is true, but seal up the vision, for it concerns the distant future. Perfect timing. I, Daniel, was exhausted and lay ill for several days. Then I got up and went about the king's business. I was appalled by the vision. It was beyond my understanding. So that's the end of the chapter. If you would like to really enjoy studying history, try to find a book that deals with the intertestamental period. Okay? Say it after me, intertestamental period. I didn't have anybody help me with that. Intertestamental period. That was the history between Malachi and Matthew. What happened between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant? Amazing things you will see, especially when you study the Greek Empire, because this is what this vision is all about. This was written some 200 years before the Greek Empire even began and existed. The trouble with the Greek Empire was they were all city-states, and they would be fighting against each other all the time. Until Philip of Macedon united them, they were not a force in the world. 200 years before this even happened. So Daniel was told to seal up this vision, because one day my servants will need to know this information. You know what that tells me? God is concerned about the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. What am I going to say next? The next generation. Us. He's concerned about us. He wants us to know that he was part of the plan. Always part of the plan. Okay, now, I got just like a few seconds. But I'm thinking, has anybody ever asked you, if Jesus really was the Christ, why did God allow somebody to kill him? That has something to do with us, right? God was in control. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. It was his way to thwart the devil's work and to raise Jesus from the dead so he could be the Savior of us all. It was in God's plan. You look in the Bible. Why did this happen? Or why did that happen? Or why did... It was in God's plan. God wants us to understand his plan. You have a question?
No, I've got a statement. You keep saying his plan, his plan. It was planned, as we've all been taught, and I'm not saying anything new. It was planned from the beginning. And a lot of people will say, well, he done this, but it didn't work out the way he wanted it, so he has a backup plan. No such thing as a backup plan.
No plan B with God, right?
It was from the beginning. And to answer your question, why did God let Jesus suffer? He suffered for me. That was his original plan.
That's right.
Carry the weight of the sins of the world on his shoulders. He couldn't have done it any other way.
I believe it. It's in the Bible.
And talked about Afghanistan a while ago. Those people that believe in God that is full of hate. We've got a God that is full of love. I remember as a child getting spanking. Mom
Not you.
punishment. She yelled out all the punishment. And she would say, it hurts me worse. Y'all heard. I'm just bringing it back to memory. Y'all heard all this before. Hurts me worse. I didn't realize that until I started to spank my oldest son. And the reason I say oldest son, I never spanked my youngest son. But he got punished. Hurt me. And I guarantee you it hurt God. He felt the pain just right along with Jesus. If he didn't hurt him, then there's something wrong.
Sadly, that's true.
Let you finish. I didn't mean to skip.
Oh, great comments.
I took up some of your time for you.
That's all right. Okay, quick. Last point, which just eludes me. So I guess I will figure it out by next week. All right? Thank you.
Sorry.
It was you.